What's happening, guys? In last week's episode we photographed a bottle and I love doing it, but for this week's episode I wanted to do something a little more complicated. So I decided let's photograph a watch, and to make it even harder I thought let's do it with one light. So why am I trying to photograph a watch using only one light? Why am I making my life so difficult? Well, today I want to tell you how all high-end advertising imagery is created. It's done using a technique called compositing. What we're going to do in today's episode, I'm going to move my one light around this subject and capture each individual element of this watch perfectly. In the next episode, we're going to composite all of those images inside of Photoshop to give us our final image. So the first thing we're going to do is photograph the watch face. So let's get straight to it. With our first exposure of the watch face, I've already come into problems. I really like this image here. I love it when you're photographing watches and you have the light just kind of kissing a little edge of a reflection on the glass of the watch. If I scroll back a few, you see there, that's obviously way too much. It's just reflecting the whole of the glass, doesn't look too good. But on that photo there, you just get that nice little reflection at the top. I love the way that looks. What I don't like though is that we're losing so much of the information of the actual watch face. We're not able to see inside here onto the edge and all the markings at the top. Now, if I had more than one light, then I would add another light just to fill in some of that so that we still had this reflection on the glass, but just another light to fill in the rest. As I don't, I've made a bit of a compromise and this is what we've ended up with. So you can still see some of the interior, but this is mainly just to get that texture here, just to get that texture on the watch face, which I think looks fantastic. I'm going to do another photo in a minute because, as you'll note, when I turn on my exposure warning here, you can see that loads of these areas are blown out. So I'm going to do another exposure for those areas in a second, but for now we're going to focus stack this. And what you'll see me doing now is I'm going to take multiple exposures as I turn the lens barrel and cover the whole length of the watch. Now I've done that, I'm just going back into Capture One. I took 8 images there, so I'm just going to give them all a color tag of orange. This is just what I always do. And then I'm going to take that into Helicon Focus and just check that it's all working. So if you missed that, I just select all of them, right click and go Edit With. And we can select, I'm just going to leave it 8-bit for now to keep this quick. We're going to go into Helicon Focus where you select it here, click Edit. Everything's inside of Capture One now, so all I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it on Method B and just leave the default settings on. Click Render, and we'll see this little bar going through the progress. You can see the little display changing as it flicks between each image. I just like to do this because I like to check that the stacks that I'm creating are actually working. So you can hear you see here there was a little bit of a difference potentially in the exposures between shots, which could have caused that. Some of these settings could fix that, but it doesn't matter too much because it's not on the face. If I just go over to here and just have a quick scroll around and check that that entire face, because this is the only bit I actually want. Yeah, that seems to have worked fine. Everything there is nicely in focus. You can see there's some sharpness being lost up here. That's just due to the glare. We can actually bring that back in Photoshop through editing, but everything else is nice and sharp. I think that looks perfect. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just save this. I will call it Face Stack, hit Save, and then that will appear back in Capture One when it actually saves. Or at least it should do. No. Oh, there we go. Okay, that just took a while. Might be because I have Photoshop and Premiere Pro and Capture One and all these other programs running at the same time. But so what I then do, what I was doing while that was exporting to Helicon, I just quickly made a folder. And what I like to do when I'm doing this sort of thing is you have to keep really organized. So I make all the folders here inside of Capture One. You just click this little button here, click album, and then you can create folders for every single element that you photograph. So this one is for the face. It has the raw files that I use to create the stack, and then I also drag in the actual stack itself. And then we're ready to move on to the next exposure. As you can see, the set has changed a little bit since the beginning. We got that first exposure for the face, and I've been working on the metal surrounding the face since then. So let me just take you into Capture One and show you some of those images. This is the original photo that you saw, the one for the face, and I took another one, like I said I was going to, which is a little bit darker to retain some of the detail in these highlights. If you look at this one, and I put the exposure warning on, you can see they're really blown out. So I just lowered the power a little bit, adjusted the light a tiny bit, and then took another exposure. It's not the end of the world if you hadn't done that, but I just like to give myself as much latitude as possible inside of Photoshop, and if I had blown out highlights, then they're quite difficult to recover. So then after having done that, I took an exposure for a nice little highlight at the top here. So we were now working on this chrome metal surround. So there we go, I took a little exposure for that, and then I took another one over this side to do another one there. And now let's show you what I'm working on at the moment. So we started with the scrim pretty much where it was originally for the face. I have a Profoto softbox up there. You can probably see the D2 just in the corner of frame. There is a very small 1 foot by 1 foot 3 inch softbox on the front of the Profoto D2. I really like that modifier. It's great for still life photography. And all I've done is I've moved this scrim where we started there. I put the D2 with the softbox over that side of the set facing in this direction, doing the same thing that we're doing now. So you see how the softbox is touching the scrim on that edge, and then the light is falling off gradually down it. So you can probably see here there's a hot spot there, and then the light slowly feathers away. So I've done that for each angle, each highlight on the front of that, front of that watch, on that chrome surround. So we had one on this side. I then moved the scrim over here, had the softbox there facing like that, and now I've moved it just up over that way. It's a little bit of an awkward set now because I can't really access my camera. So question is, how am I going to do the focus stack now? It's a little bit difficult to get to my camera. I'll show you. It's actually really simple to do the focus stack when you can't access the camera. I just go into live view. So we click this little button down here to go into live view. And all we actually need is this area here. We don't really need that much to be focus stacked, but I'm going to do more than is necessary. So if we just zoom in, and you can see I'm already focused on the area that I want, but I'm just going to go a little bit further toward us by using the focus controls here. You can see it starts to go out of focus, just so that I can ensure I'm definitely getting everything I need. And then I'll just start using this button and capturing images. So that was one, and then we'll move the focus a little bit to another one. And then we just repeat the process. So I won't force you to watch the whole of this. We will return once I have focus stacked the image. So there we are, that is the image stacked and back in Capture One. What I want to show you now is over in Photoshop, while we've been doing this, I've been creating a kind of rough version. There's a few reasons for doing this. Firstly, for myself, just to make sure that everything we're doing is working. And also if you're working with a client, obviously if you're working with a client, you're probably not going to be doing it with one light. But even if you are doing it with 2, 3, 4 lights, they're still going to want to see what's actually going on. They're not going to be able to envision the final image in the same way that you will. So what I do is I just very quickly, either myself or an assistant will create this on set. So we have our main exposure for the face there, which is our base exposure. Then we did the one here, which as you can see just knocks down those highlights on the very bright areas of the face. Then I just use that to take this little ugly bit away here as well. And then we did all of the highlights surrounding the chrome of the watch face, which is what I was working on just now and just showing you. So we had the top left one, one for the top right, and then one for the bottom, which was the last one I just showed you. I hope you guys have a good idea for how this technique actually works. There are tons of more images that I need to create for this watch. I need to do some for these chrome parts at the top, for the brush metal in areas, for the crown, for the strap, for tons of other areas. And rather than having this tutorial be like an hour and a half long, I'm going to cut it here and we're going to return once I have all of those images to show you. Alright, so it's been quite a while since the last part of this video. These were the first 5 parts of the composite which I showed you. Since then I've created another 8 exposures, which total a grand total of 13 to create this image, which is just a little bit ridiculous. I'll just show you what they are and then I'll go into Photoshop and show you what I've done. So you have the brush metal on the right side, that's just here. Then we have it on the left side there. Chrome at the bottom here, the crowns up there. We have the left side highlight. That was a little bit of an annoying one to get. Then I redid this highlight because when I was merging them in Photoshop, I decided I didn't really like it. And then we have the strap, which obviously is way too bright, but I was happy to take it like this, knowing I was going to darken it down inside of Photoshop. And then I took another exposure, just if you keep an eye on where I'm waving my mouse now, on the front metal just there, I'll toggle between them. I just like these little highlights that were created. Okay, so let's head over to Photoshop and I'll show you what I've done. So there we go. As you can see, quite a lot has happened. So let's go through it all. So the most obvious thing is I created a path just around the watch so that I could add my own background. So I just used a pen tool, created a path. Path looks like that. It's very rough. I would do a better one when I edit it properly. Then we have the background, a little highlight on the background there just to make the watch pop out a little bit. And then we have tons of layers. These are for all of the exposures that I've taken to composite this together. So this is where we left it last time. We have the highlights around the chrome metal of the watch. Then we have an exposure here. That was for the brush metal on the right side, the left side. You know, these are all the ones that I was showing you in Capture One, but I'm just showing you the build up in Photoshop now. The crowns there. The glossy parts on that side and a little color adjustment to bring it in line with the rest. Then we have the strap being too bright and then I darkened that down. And then there was you see this called strap other places. That's because for the same exposure of the strap, I liked what it did to the crown and to the other areas here. You see it's really added some nice specular highlights, really made them pop out. I really liked that. And then we just have this little area here, which as I toggle this on and off, there we go. All right, so that's it. We've photographed all the elements of our watch. That's all done. All that's left to do now is go into Photoshop and create our composite. But remember, that will be in the next episode. For now, before you go, I just wanted to run through a couple things. Firstly, it's the takeaways that I want you to leave this tutorial with. Firstly, it's that you don't need a lot of equipment to take these kinds of images. You know, yes, I used an expensive strobe, but I only used one strobe. You could do this with any speed light really. There is an advantage to using the Profoto head that it has 10 stops of power range, but other lights have that. I think Pulsey Buff has that as well, and they're not particularly expensive strobes. It's not about the amount of gear that you use. And we're going to cover the gear that I used in just a moment, but I just wanted to say it is not about that. The next thing to take away is compositing as a technique. Compositing is what allows high-end photographers to create those images that you are trying to do. If you don't already do compositing, then you need to learn the technique and you need to start doing it. All right, so let's take you through some of the kit I've got today. It's all going to be linked in the description below, so don't worry, you don't need to write it down or anything. So there's the Profoto D2 head, like I've already mentioned. It's a great head, I love it, but you don't have to use that one. We then have the Profoto standard reflector. Again, you could use any reflector from any brand, just as long as it matches your strobe. And then we have a 10-degree grid on the front there, and I also use a 30-degree grid as well at points. Then we have the Profoto 1x1 3-inch softbox. Lots of other brands do softboxes like this. If I'm wrong and they don't, then you can probably get an adapter to put that one onto your light. But you could use a range of different softboxes. You could use strip boxes. It doesn't have to be that one. That's it for modifiers. Other than that, it was all scrims and grip equipment. So I used 3 different scrims. Opal acrylic, you will have seen me use this in my last video on bottle photography. I used 3 A1 sheets. Really love this stuff. I use it for all sorts of things. But in this scenario today, I just used it to kind of, because it's rigid, you can really easily put it in lots of different places like I have done here, and that's great, love using that. Then when I needed a slightly larger scrim, I used the Westcott Fast Flag with some Lee 129 diffusion inside of it. And then when I wanted something even bigger, I used this. This is a 4 foot by 4 foot trace frame. Matthews make a version. This is from a company in Ireland, I think, but I'll link to everything down below, so don't worry about that. And that's it. Other than that, it was just grip equipment. So you've got like my magic arms, super clamps, all that kind of stuff. But really, it's nothing crazy expensive. The most expensive thing on the set was the D2, but that could have been replaced with tons of other lights. So really, the only reason that you can't create these kind of images is knowledge. And hopefully me creating these videos, you're going to gain some of that knowledge and be able to do this yourself. So like I said, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button. If you want to see more from me, tell me what you want to see in the comments below. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And yeah, thanks guys. I'll catch you later.